After 37 years of Zelda games, 20 some odd games with Zelda in the title, we can finally, officially play as Zelda. Look at her go, she's messing everybody up. Now's your chance, Zelda. You've waited long enough. Sink 'em, kill them all. You find the final boss already? Pretty short game for $60. Hold on though, if that's Zelda up there, then are there 2 Zeldas in this game? Oh, what the fuck? The Legend of Zelda starts with Link getting slurpeed and Zelda returns home, immediately gets accused of plotting a January 6th and gets arrested by the Imposter King, with the cute little chibi models talking about how she's soon to be executed. And I say, good! The number of times the Hyrule Kingdom has been taken over and ravished by obvious, preventable threats, all the while the do-nothing royal family is collecting taxes, living in opulence, filling their castles with tapestries and puzzles and indoor roller coaster tracks, deploying their guard to guard the garden instead of protecting the people. It's about time this useless bourgeoisie ruling class gets Louis the 14th. But instead, in true D&D fashion, Zelda meets her state-mandated adventuring companion while in prison, Tri. As someone who's played a lot of Kirby games, I half expected Tri to betray you and be the surprise final boss, but that would involve this game's story attempting to be interesting at all. Instead, Tri grants Zelda the Wand of Gamelon, a reference to the gamelan in the Forest Temple music. And this mystic stick lets you play the game in debug mode. You can summon game assets whenever you want for platforming and puzzle solving.
I summon Pot of Greed to draw 3 additional cards from my deck! I summon Pot of Greed to draw 3 additional cards from my deck! Which allows me to play Pot of Greed once again to draw 3 additional cards from my deck! You never saw this coming! I summoned Pot of Greed to draw 3 additional cards from my deck! That's what it do, Yugi!
That does what it do!
After escaping the tutorial zone, you change into your sneaking suit behind the goddess statue. Symbolism. But my question is, Impa, where have you been this whole time? She gives you a hoodie and does some ninja moves, and this is the only thing that she does all game. Because she's old! Let her rest! She should have retired by now and been replaced by a younger, hotter Impa. Zelda can also summon any enemy from the game as an echo after beating them once. I really like how some of these have uses outside of just raw combat. Flying Tile can double as a surfboard. The Ignazole cannot prevent forest fires. These sharks that are surfing around can protect you from undersea threats. The same way that today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN, can help protect your privacy online. A VPN, or virtual private network, well, it's like wearing pants. All of the important stuff stays private and secure when you go outside. I think having a VPN could have helped out Zelda in this game. She's trying to hide her identity while she's out and about saving Hyrule, and a VPN encrypts your information to keep it hidden from snoopers and trackers. If Zelda wants to connect to the Suthorn Village public Wi-Fi, then Surfshark VPN would protect her personal information the same way that Zelda's hood protects her face. Say you want to see another Zelda-like adventure. You pull up Netflix to watch Lord of the Rings, but in the United States, it's not there. But you can use Surfshark VPN and their over 3,200 servers in 100 countries to switch your online location to Australia. Boom, you're watching Frodo and the gang. Sounds pretty good, right? Well, I got the hookup for y'all. Go to surfshark.com/CaptainAstronaut for 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee if you don't love it. So check out Surfshark VPN using the link in the description below. And thanks again to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring today's video. Zelda's Adventure, not to be confused with Zelda's Adventure. Now that Zelda has busted out of prison, the core gameplay loop begins. Overworld exploration, do the errands bestowed by quest givers, still world platforming, then the return of classic 2D top-down Zelda dungeons that some old heads have been thirsting for. The Legend of Zelda does a great job of balancing both the more open-ended approach to puzzle solving of Butwa and Tatka, and the more linearly crafted approaches of older Zelda titles. A true water cooler game. It's so interesting to watch other people play this game and see how everyone clears the same challenges slightly differently, or even just use different echoes for traversal. At many points, the game gives you options on which dungeons you delve into first, which I really like. There's even a couple of optional mini dungeons, or you can spend a lot of time ignoring the dungeons entirely. After clearing the first full dungeon, you can go pretty much anywhere. Trees that would normally gate to your progress in older games are now new ground to walk on in this one, which is really cool. They took the map of A Link to the Past and said more. There's a great diversity of species from past Zelda games. They got river Zoras and sea Zoras for the first time, I believe, since Oracle of Ages. They even got a Deku Scrub village, that's where your boyfriend is from. They even got the Yetis from Twilight Princess. No one ever expected the Yetis coming back. It's like the other tribes of Hyrule were always there this whole time, watching you. This game does a great job at rewarding your exploration by having plenty of things to find, like cool little squirrel-based minigames that are quick bits of fun while still testing out your abilities. They even got a boss rush minigame. Every Zelda game should have a boss rush minigame. During your exploration, you're golden showered with a continual stream of shiny new echoes. Older Zelda games get like one item per dungeon. Here it's like you're collecting a new item every 5 feet, which is both a good and not so good thing. Because the thing about this game is, look, the game design philosophy on Showcase here is the perfect combination KFC Taco Bell combo of classic Zelda formula and new Zelda formula. So enough! Enough with the think pieces! Are we really gonna sit here like a bunch of assholes and pretend like Tears of the Kingdom ain't a cool game for cool gamers? Hell's wrong with y'all. Matter of fact, just play the clip of me from last year. So I say, enjoy the game now before in 6 months to a year when all the internet think pieces come out telling you that it was bad actually. Wait, they're already here, aren't they? Now, I know what you're all wondering. In the great pantheon of games starring playable women, how does this work stack up as a seminal feminist text? As a lifelong man, I'm obviously qualified to answer this question. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is a certified girl game for girl gamers. Look at all the shops in the game, because as we all know, women be shopping. Am I right, fellas? You can change into all these different outfits, because as we all know, women be dressing up. I like playing dress up too. So many different outfits you can wear that I totally did the side quest to unlock and didn't just scan the amiibo for. Look at all these accessories you can wear, because as we all know, women be liking jewelry. Want you to put a ring on it, so they can take half in 10 years. You can blend smoothies for power-ups, because as we all know, women be smooth. Women be juicy, women be drinking coffee, women be snacking. Am I right, fellas? You even got little robots to deploy, because as we all know, women like their devices, always complaining that they can't leave the house without their cell phone and their Fitbit and their EpiPen. In a game where you can already summon all these echoes instantly, did anyone ever use these automatons that you have to stand still and wind up before they do anything? I messed around with Techno Rock during the final boss battle for shits and giggles, and that was it. These would work well in a future game that doesn't also have echoes. You can full heal anytime by summoning a bed, because as we all know, women be napping. The prettiest girl you know is probably the sleepiest girl you know. Link needs an item to lift heavy boulders? Soy! Zelda can lift heavy objects because of her innate motherly birthing strength. Zelda also takes no fall damage because women wear heels. This gives them strong calves. Wait, Link takes fall damage, but Zelda doesn't? What is this? Feminism? Women's liberation? In my Zelda game? Well, apparently not, because girls can't jump as high as boys, so Zelda needs to transform into Link to jump higher, which is really annoying until halfway through the game you get frog powers, and then the game becomes playable. And you know, the thing about this game is there's so much dialogue with all these NPCs, because as we all know, women be talking. Am I right, fellas? And since it's a Nintendo game, you know it's not voice acted, and you gotta read, because as we all know, women be reading books. Okay, that one is true. Women do be reading though. She echo on my dome till I whiz. You know, not to take credit for all these developers' hard work, but some people have been saying that I kind of manifested this game into existence. What people? No one has said that. In a video I made 2 years ago, I talked about how much agency as a character Zelda has in The Legend of Zelda, the series named after her. You can go watch that video at the end of this one, not to remove my rib and slap my own knob, but from what I've heard, every viewer of that video gives it a standing ovation after watching. No one is saying that! But in my research, I found that in most of the older games, she don't do all that much, or has to be in a disguise to do stuff, or it has to be a spin-off game. But in more recent games, she actually gets to do some stuff while still not trampling over the player's actions. And at the end of the video, I hypothesize what a potential Zelda's game could look like. One part kingdom management, one part adventuring. I do think my idea was a little bit better than this game, but the direction they went in for The Legend of Zelda was pretty cool too. I remember when the first trailer showed how battles would work, with Zelda not fighting directly, and some people had some intrusive thoughts about it. On one hand, she's all about the Triforce of Wisdom. It makes sense that Zelda would fight using her wisdom. On the other hand, does Zelda not fight directly cause she's a girl? Girl can't fight, that's why Nintendo stopped making Metroid games. I think the combination of Nintendo not always giving Zelda her due, and the recent Princess Peach game ended up being a baby game for babies, had people a little worried, you know? And then in the second trailer, they're like, you can Shazam into Link. Zelda really ain't beating the allegations. For a limited time, a very limited time, which I'm sure was a playtesting thing. Players probably weren't using the echoes at all if they had the sword the whole time. And while this game did not specifically start development as a game starring Zelda, with a game starring Zelda, what do you do for the gameplay? Are you gonna have her use her blinged out wizard magic and Duracell powered bow and arrow to wage war against evil? Or is it gonna be the same gameplay as always, but now Link has titties? And I think the direction they went in here is the best of both worlds. Zelda stays true to her wisdom magician characterization, while players still go on a Legend of Zelda style adventure as Zelda this time. The game even does a great in-universe job of justifying why you are playing as Zelda, while not disrespecting the legacy of Link, if you will. Don't worry to all my real Linkers out there, the whole time Link is just off screen, also fighting evil. Zelda waits almost 4 decades for her own game and her own story, and even then she still has to share it with a man. Link, I'm here to save you! And it's a blonde woman in a cat suit. Lord, I have seen what you have done for others. In the final dungeon, you team up with Link and fight together, which is always cool when that happens at Zelda climaxes. It got me thinking, wow, this could maybe be its own game. But then spending several minutes watching the Link AI try to jump on the stack of boxes I made for him in the only puzzle room where you have to help him, I was like, you know what, never mind, I don't know if that game would work. It could make for a cool 2-player It Takes Two style co-op game. One player as Link with the sword and bow, the other player as Zelda with magic and bow. But you know, the thing about this game is, in this game you're playing as Summoner Zelda, like a Japanese pharaoh you're calling in monsters to fight for your love. It kinda reminds me of when I was playing Pokemon Violet's auto battle and telling my Mango Fury to kill every single wild Pokemon on the planet. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom has so many great ideas on paper. But the thing about this game is that the game is really boring. I'm sorry, it's boring. When the combat is at its best, it's squad versus squad. You can summon some echoes, go into sword fighter mode yourself, and you all gang up on them. But rarely is the combat at its best. It's funny at first, you know, watching 2 slimes have a more exciting mirror match than any recent Melee tournament. But the thing about enemy AI in video games in general is it's often rigged in the player's favor. Enemies move slowly and take time between their attacks, so the player can think and move around and plan their own attack. But when your allies are running off of enemy AI, it sucks! A lot of the combat is summoning an echo, they get maybe 1 hit in, and then die. So you summon them again, all the while you're standing there watching with your tri-rod in your hand like a dumbass. It's like when Ocarina Zelda just stood there and watched Link fight Ganon swordless, even though the Master Sword was right there next next to her and she could have thrown it back. I suppose this laziness runs in the family. The ruling class watching the workers beneath them sacrifice their bodies for their overlord's approval. So then you switch to sword fighter mode, and that lasts for like what, 10 seconds? Maybe you can get a few sword swings in, or hang back and shoot the bow, assuming you can lock onto the correct target and not locking onto your own echoes who are barely even fighting. It's just so frustrating sometimes. You explore the world, you unlock all of these echoes, and then you go to fight, and most of them are fucking worthless. Even the allegedly more powerful echoes. I summon electric dark magician. Send that crab to the graveyard. Dark magic attack, and it fucking missed. And it's teleporting, and it missed again, and it keeps missing. Okay, that's fine. We'll try again tomorrow. Just send in the fucking crows. It's cool walking around the overworld with a murder of crows that attack everything that breathes and pick up rupees for you. Just the crows could be its own game. Though I wish they could keep up with your walking speed. And unlike most of the echoes, at least the crows actually do an attack. Oh, the crows die in one hit. Summon more crows. You have access to infinite crows. Maybe the echoes could have started out as bad as they are, but over the course of the game, the more of that enemy you defeat, Zelda gets better at making that echo and emulating its behavior, and that echo becomes stronger and better at fighting and reduced time between their attacks. You know, you can level them up, like Pokemon, because that's basically what they are. The way it is now, I found myself skipping a lot of the combat because the combat is not great. And then there's the Echo menu, or shall I call it by its full name, the fucking Echo menu. It sucks. This is a Super Bowl goal to go down by 5 level fumble in the UI UX department. It's a great example of how you can't just copy paste UI from a different game and expect it to work just as well. It's similar to Zelda Totka's Arrow Fuse menu, which people also complain about, but it wasn't that bad there, at least not for me, because most of the stuff I'd fuse was at the start of the menu anyways, and you'd only do it when shooting the bow and arrow. But in Zelda, you're constantly switching echoes, and every echo you have is in a straight line. You gotta scroll all the way over, and there's over 100 echoes. Trying to scroll for one specific echo you need for one specific situation is a pain. About halfway through the game, I pretty much stopped using it and would pause the game instead and look for what I needed. Right on the D-pad opens the echo menu. The L shoulder button also opens the same menu. So instead, I would have had the L shoulder button open a radial menu where players can manually set their 12 favorite echoes for quick selection. It would have sort of emulated how in older Zelda games, you'd have multiple buttons you could assign items to, which helps keep you in the action. There's also a bunch of filler echoes? Do we really need 3 types of pots and 3 types of bed? Do we really need an echo that's used for one quest and never again? Oh, and while we're on the parts of this game that suck ass, the dialogue. Look, I've been playing video games long enough where I do not expect video games to have good dialogue. But if a game has a lot of dialogue, it better be good. I've been playing Disco Elysium. That game is 95% people talking and 5% walking to the next talking. So the dialogue has to be really good. But Echoes of Wisdom has a ton of dialogue, everyone reciting 10 sentences to say 2 sentences. But it's mostly exposition with very little frills or humor or personalities, very bland. Or what is there seems very younger target audience, very much parent reading a storybook to their young child before bedtime, if that makes sense. And it's strange, because I've never had this problem with older Zelda games, so why here? Well, when doing long bouts of exposition, other Zelda games usually have a tapestry or cutscene or something interesting to look at. And to be fair, there's one point where this game does show a cutscene. It's a big lore dump in the middle that explains this game's history is kinda similar to the plot of the movie The Eternals, and you can't even fact check me on that, cause yo ass didn't watch it, no one did. But in this game, most of the time it's the chibi models with text on screen for a really long time, and they don't have anything to say. About halfway through the game, I realized the story isn't going anywhere. The game's whole plot is, there's a big purple guy inside the planet. It wants to escape and destroy everything. You stop it at the end. And again, I've never had this problem with Zelda games before. Older top-down Zelda games were very light on dialogue. Pretty much, come in, Link. It's me, Sahasrara. go here next, sort of thing. 3D Zelda games have different camera angles, animations, and facial expressions to better convey their emotions. But in Zelda, yow! With these little chibi models, limited screen real estate, limited ability to even see what is on the screen, because I played the bulk of this game in handheld mode while I was traveling in Egypt. I remember laying in bed through the ice dungeon while suffering from Egyptian food poisoning. Do not eat the salads at the resort buffets. Anyways, the game introduces a bunch of characters that, I'm sorry, I just never gave a fuck about, and the game never established a good reason for me to. Some of them are more expressive than the average NPC, but it's always the same. You show up, you solve their problem, and then never see or hear from them again. I don't even remember their names. It's like the villagers in Animal Crossing New Horizons. They look nice, they ain't got nothing good to say. I think indifference is the operative term here. I felt indifferent to all of the words on screen. When the most exciting character in the game is Stamp Guy, you know you're in trouble. Try is in the game and has the most lines of dialogue. You can skip all of Try's lines of dialogue. Perhaps they should have tried to give our little buddy a personality. You also get very broken echoes pretty early on. And I ain't talking about launching the beta really high with Tornado. I ain't talking about picking up the meat and reverse binding the crow to fly infinitely, because those techniques involve the player having to engage with the game's mechanics for discovery. I'm talking about very easily breaking the game. You see, the old bed you get very early on is super useful for both climbing and healing, but it has clear limitations. But then you get the water block, which is really good. And then you can skip large sections of the game with a crawl tour, climb on that thing. Please subscribe. You can skip like most of the water dungeon by climbing up a wall. And it's not like the crawl Tula is hidden in a corner of the map, it's right there in plain sight in the overworld. And then the Cloud Echo, basically, you fly now. There's all these platforming sections before dungeons where you get sucked into the distortion world from Pokemon Platinum. And there's one big final still world platforming section at the end of the game, a true test of all your abilities to that point. And you can use the Cloud Echo to easily skip the entire thing. And that's the risk inherent to giving the player so many options. So much freedom of choice because the price of freedom is steep, and the player can accidentally make the game too easy or not satisfying enough. To the game's credit, at no point, at least in my playthrough, did I ever not have the echo I needed for a puzzle. But when you have so many echoes and only very few of them work for each situation, it's not only clunky to navigate to that specific echo, it can also be a major test of patience to find the right one. Most of the bosses are really well designed, with multiple options to take them out, but a few of them, like Volvagina, I wasn't sure what the proper way of damaging it was, or if I'm supposed to be attacking flying Monty Mole while he's up in the air, or just wait it out. So you know what? I just sent out Unreliable. Murder a crow spam. It took like 1,000 crows, but I beat it. So when you happen upon a shitty solution that jankily works, it's like, I guess that's fine, but I don't know. In Tears of the Kingdom, when I found my own solutions to puzzles, I felt like I was outsmarting the game. When I come up with my own solution to Echoes of Wisdom, it felt like the game should have been a little bit better balanced. This is getting kinda negative, so let's reverse it around. The presentation. The game looks cool. It's got a great color palette and more depth of field effects than an episode of Euphoria. I am usually not a fan of chibi scale models, but here this art direction works well. That toy-like plastic sheen on everything is a great look that captures the dimensions and character of older top-down Zeldas on modern hardware. And the frame rate is also there. The music is pretty good too, but it's a Zelda game, you already know the music is pretty good. If you like clarinet, you'll love the game's soundtrack. If you don't like clarinet, well, there's some other tracks too that you'll probably like instead. The cave music sucks though, and there are a lot of caves. Given that this game takes place in Hyrule, Zelda visits many traditional series landmarks throughout her journey that usually come with recurring melodies tied to each place. But instead of playing the same songs again, I'm glad this soundtrack has more original songs for those returning areas while still retaining echoes of the original melodies. Overall, the game is ultimately fine, but for her first official mainline outing, Zelda deserved a little bit better than this. There's a lot of great ideas on display here, but it would benefit from a more refined sequel. Being able to summon a bunch of dudes to fight for you is really cool, but it's also challenging to make the computer fighting for you consistently fun. In any game, Zelda is one of those games where it's really fun for the first couple hours, but quickly runs out of steam. It's one of the only Zelda games I've ever had to push myself to finish instead of getting excited to play the game. Towards the end, I just started cheesing through everything. Whenever it was combat, I was like, yeah, fuck it, just send in the Lionel. It's one of the only echoes that actually does anything. And whenever it was platforming, I was like, yeah, fuck it, just send in the clouds, who cares? It's certainly one of the most whelming Zelda games I've ever played. And I've played most of them. I mean, it's still better than Wii Skyward Sword actively pissing me off for its entire runtime. But this game's got nothing on bump and jump though. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe. Obviously this is all just my opinion and I'm just one person. So if you've played The Legend of Zelda, comment below with how you felt about the game. And today's comment code word is intelligence. Comment intelligence if you made it all the way through the video. And that's it, video's over.
Maybe we can say it's fair. Take it to the internet and I'ma take it there.